Look here, Minnie the cat is sleeping in my armchair. Say hello to Minnie the cat. Hello Booktube, or as we say in Sweden, tjena tjena Booktube. Here it is time for another edition of my wonderful segment, I've Read Something. Today I want to tell you that I've read Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and here's my review. Kazuo Ishiguro's novel Klara and the Sun is probably one of the most expected and one of the most successful book releases of 2021. I've read this book in English, but very rarely when I read a new book I can say that there's already a translation into German, Klara und die Sonne, but there's also a translation into Swedish, Klara och solen. This book has been sold to many countries, and Kazuo Ishiguro is a name of high class, and he also won the Nobel Prize for Literature a couple of years ago. So this is very much expected. It's his first book after he won the Nobel Prize. But I haven't read a book by Ishiguro yet. So this one with a red cover here is my first Ishiguro, Klara and the Sun. Many of my fellow booktubers have also made reviews about it, single reviews about it. Some were fascinated and really love it, Ishiguro fans, real Ishiguro fans, and some others have given it a pretty low number of points. So what is this book about? And how many points does it get from me, from Rainier Books, your favorite booktube channel? I'm exaggerating as always. So this book, Klara and the Sun, it's about a girl named Klara, and it's about the sun. So it plays in a future, I would say, like at least 20 years, maybe 50 years from now, maybe let's say it's in the 2050s or 2060s, somewhere in the United States. The world has definitely changed. And Ishiguro is telling us some things about this world. It starts in a shop somewhere in the United States, and Klara is a so-called AF. She's an artificial friend, and she is the narrator of this story. And I've learned from other reviews, from other things that I've read about Ishiguro now, that Ishiguro is a master of creating unreliable narrators. So Klara doesn't know everything about the world. She is artificial, right? She's of artificial intelligence. And she's standing in that shop waiting to be bought by a teenager probably, because most of these AFs go to teenagers. She's a B2 version. There's already a B3 version, but the mother and Josie, these are the people that Klara is going to have as her family in the second, third, fourth, and fifth part of the book. This family decides they decide for a B2 instead of a B3 because Klara is so beautiful. She looks French, says Josie. And who's Josie? Josie is a 13-year-old girl. And she is really very fond of Klara when she sees her for the first time in that window of the shop, believes Klara. It seems that Josie picks Klara, and they buy Klara after the first part of the book, and they take her to their home somewhere in a rural area in America, where the only neighboring house that Klara can see, at least from the windows of this new house where she's going to live, is the neighboring house of Rick and his mother. And there is a big class difference between Chrissy and Josie, the people who live in Klara's house, together with Melania, housekeeper, which might be a reference to Melania Trump, but I don't know why. That might be the only thing that's not so really successful in the book. And the difference is that the people, Chrissy and Josie, they're uplifted. So it's possible in this new world that people get uplifted to a different class. And Rick and his mother, who definitely come from England, who speak with an English accent, which is very interestingly in the written language of the book is materialized by using English spelling when Rick speaks, for example. He says color with O-U instead of with an O only, and things like that. But Josie is, we learn that very soon, she is sick. She is really very sick. And her sickness is something that she might be terminally ill. At least we learn later that her, which is not a spoiler, it's still somewhere in the beginning third of the novel, that her mother, we learn that her sister died maybe of the same illness that Josie has, and Josie gets this AF to support her, to be around with her, to also console her in her loneliness, because loneliness is one of the big topics of the book that Ishiguro is exploring. And I don't think that, like what many people have said, that I don't read a book that is told by an artificial, that is narrated by an artificial narrator. What is that? I don't think that this is the core of the book. I don't think that this is the meaning of the book, to introduce us to artificial narrators. I think that Ishiguro uses Klara, who's an unreliable narrator, who has a certain limited view of the world because she can only take in new information. She doesn't know about the history of the hearts. She doesn't know about the history of the souls. So she just takes in new information and tries to make something out of it. And Klara, because she's unreliable, because she doesn't know everything, she is watching us humans in a different way and analyzing us. And there is this relationship between the mother, the very protective mother, who is scared to death. You could say that even her oldest daughter, Josie, might die of that illness. And we learn later that the father, and even that is not a spoiler, the father of Josie, apparently there was a divorce. The father is also, that maybe the divorce was caused by this death of that first child. And Klara, she wants to do everything possible when she realizes that Josie is in danger, she wants to do everything possible to save Klara, to save Josie from that fate of slowly dying. And she believes, because she doesn't really understand everything on this planet, she believes that the sun up in the sky, which she gives the pronoun he to, he, the sun, which could be he, the god, he, the sun, who is nourishing her, because the AFs are working with solar energy solely. They don't eat, they don't drink, they just get nourished, they just get their energy from the sun. And that's why Klara believes that everything else is in the same situation. She believes because Josie is living in this very dark room, which is often darkened because she's sick and she's lying there and she's miserable, that Josie just needs more dose of sun. That if he, the sun, would give Josie more light, then even Josie could get healthy again, that she would thrive again, that she would be the friend that the artificial friend and the friend, Josie and Klara, that everything could be okay for Josie. And this book is very much about loneliness, because it's a very lonely world that we are experiencing here, but it's also as much as about loneliness, it's a book about love. My love, she speaks like silence, without ideals or violence. She doesn't have to say she's faithful, yet she's true like ice, like fire. People carry roses, make promises by the hours. My love is like the flowers. Yeah, that's Bob Dylan, but who also won the Nobel Prize for Literature, who tries to give a very poetic and ununderstandable definition of love. And love in this book is really, it takes us to the limit of what love could do. Is there a limit for love? Is love something? And about loss, it's also about loss, about losing someone so close as Josie's little sister who died before the events in the book occur. But they're afraid of losing Josie, and the mother, as it shows, is and I'm not revealing here anything, but the mother, that I can tell you, the mother is willing to go to extreme lengths that are technically possible in this new world to maintain Josie in this world, in her life. But is that love? That's the question Ishiguro is asking. He's asking a lot of questions, and he's describing the style of writing his novel, of writing this piece of literature is so smooth, so well built. I mean, he's really a master of creating worlds without telling us everything about this world. There are some devices in this world, so-called oblongs. There are this uplifting of students, of teenagers who lift them up to another level. What's connected with that? We don't get this information. And obviously there's something more to everything. And that's also something that I think is very fascinating, is that Ishiguro is giving us hints, he's giving us certain descriptions, and the rest is up to us, up to our fantasy. And we could even make a writing exercise of some parts of this book. We could even say, class, sit down and write more about the world that Ishiguro has described. Please sketch more about this world. We want to know more. And everyone in the class would write something creative about the world that Ishiguro has started to create here. So this is not giving everything. This gives a lot to us readers in our imaginations. And I think compared to the book that I've read, that I started to read, compared to China Room by Sanjeev Sahota, I would definitely say that this book should be on the short list. But I only have peeped into two books. I read this one, and I read my 50 pages of Sanjeev Sahota. This one is really a wonderful book. I like it a lot, and I think it grows. It's a book also that will not leave you alone. You're not just finishing it, give it back to the library, in this case, Högdalen's Bibliothek, and say, okay, that was it, bye-bye Ishiguro. This book really makes me want to read more of Ishiguro. And this book will also keep me thinking about Klara, about Josie, about her mother, about the neighbors, about the father, about Mr. Capriati, or what his name was. It is really amazing, beautiful narrative literature. It's easily built, it's easy to read, it's accessible to each and every one, but it gives us so many issues and so many questions about the very deep things of our lives. And that's why I like it, and that's why I recommend Kazuo. That's why I recommend Kazuo Ishiguro's novel, Klara and the Sun. You should read it. Read it in English. Read it in your language, because it's already translated into so many languages. Thanks very much for watching this video. Bye-bye.